You're listening to This Week in America with Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America. Great to have you with us on the program. Website thisweekinamerica.us. Manish N Prasad, our guest on today's program. He was born and raised in Fiji, an accountant by profession. He currently resides in Melbourne, Australia. His first published book is The Birthday Boy. It shares a story where the power of fate proves itself. He's with us on today's program to talk about the book, The Birthday Boy. Manish Prasad. Manish, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Ricky. It's good to be there.
It is, and I say in the beginning there that this is your first book, and for most people who have read the book, they're going, "This really is an excellent job." But it actually is the first book. Where did the idea come about for this?
Well, the idea is a sum of different concepts, and each of those concepts had their own separate trigger points. I knew how it would end, and I just didn't know how it would start. With regards to the starting point, there was a long-held personal belief of mine that certain dates followed you, and important things happen on that date. I often visited that idea, but for a long while it was just an idea, and I just entertained it as I went along. Then a friend of mine wrote in an email that there were certain dates that the heart and the mind never forgot, and I think those were the first words of the book. And I thought that if I used that as a starting point of my story and lead it to that conclusion that I had in mind, there could be this interesting sequence of events which could make up a good plot and turn into a story worth telling.
The book is called The Birthday Boy. Manish N Prasad, our guest on This Week in America. The book is available at Goodreads, available at Amazon. You can link on directly to Manish's website by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. His website is Manish, that's MANISHN Prasad, PRASAD.com, ManishNPrasad.com. Information, in fact, if you Google that name, Manish N Prasad, you will find where the book's available, the Facebook page that Manish has, as well as his website. You mentioned that you knew how the book was going to end before you really thought about how it was going to begin and what you were going to do during the course of the story you were telling. How long ago was that? How long have you been working on this?
Well, the concept of those dates have been there for maybe a very long time. Since I started work, so that was over maybe 10-15 years ago, and the way it ended was something that I had in high school, but not specifically with respect to the characters that I used, but I had that thing with me that if a story ends this way, it could garner interest. It could sort of attract a lot of interest. But the only thing was I didn't know how it would start, because the way it ended is it's not a very unique way, because stories like that have been written and movies like that have been made as well. But when I realized that there was this way I could start it, and this was a couple of years ago, regarding the days of fate, and I said maybe this is the best way to connect those two points. The ending I had in mind for a long time. The date concept came a little later, and the connection between them maybe came, I think, just before I started writing.
It's a beautifully written book. Like I say, it's hard to imagine this was the first book. Manish N Prasad, our guest on the program. The book is called The Birthday Boy, and it's a short story. And just when you think you're figuring out where it's going, there are twists and turns along the way. Talk about, in writing that, the enjoyment that you had as an author, because this is not just one genre represented here. You really are taking us on it's a short story, but a very exciting ride, and with a lot of unexpected storylines as you're going through. How much fun was that writing?
It was quite a bit of fun. It was what sort of gathered my interest, because what the story is, it's like a road linking two different ideas, but it's not a straight and simple road. It doesn't sort of just you just don't take one straight path and end up at the destination. It's like it curled and weaved through different stops before reaching the full destination. And I thought that was really interesting, in the sense that it gave me the opportunity to touch on a few issues which would otherwise have seemed irrelevant if I just used the straight road. But because it sort of curled and wove around different genres, it attracted my interest, and I thought it would be a very interesting read.
What's interesting, and I mentioned it's a short story, and you think about, okay, is it easier or more challenging to write a shorter story? You really need to keep the story moving. You really need to hold our attention. Talk about some of the challenges in writing a short story that does all of that keeps our attention and keeps the storyline moving rather quickly.
Well, that's right. The thing about this story was it was plot oriented. The plot drove the story throughout. That's why it moves so fast. The story covers a period of 3 years in less than 60 pages, so it had to move fast. And that's what in, intrigued me. And I realized that it would be easier for me to do this than to sort of set up a scene, set up a setting, set up these characters for whom I have to for whom I have to give explanation. Uh, and that's why it was so interesting to me, because like I knew that I could start this, and because it was driven by plot, I could just keep writing. That wasn't actually the case, because like at certain times I had to stop myself, step back, and have a relook at it. The flip side of this is like I didn't get much room for characterization. Novels tend to have more room for character development.
Right.
I tried to address that by ensuring that the characters were from everyday life. Anyone, hopefully, should be able to relate to them, because there's nothing. Well, in this story, there's nothing peculiar about any of them. They're just everyday people. The story is set in Fiji, and I didn't actually describe what Fiji is like for the benefit of those who've never been there. But the story could have been set anywhere, so I didn't have to dwell too much on describing the setting either, because it doesn't actually matter. Now, because of all that, it allowed me to focus on the plot and carry the story quicker. And that's the reason why I went for it. The challenging part is, yes, to keep the story moving. But like I said, because there were 2 points connecting each other, and these 2 points went through a curling road. And that sort of kept me on the go, so to speak, because like it was interesting at every point in time, writing those different points. And the thing is, if you don't find any interest writing it, I don't think readers will find any interest reading it. So if you're interested in something, and if you have this excitement about it, then the challenge is to then translate that excitement to the reader.
You're listening to This Week in America, our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Of course, information on our guest on the program available at the website. You can link on directly to Manish's website. Manish, M-A-N-I-S-H, N Prasad, P-R-A-S-A-D, is our guest on the program today. Author of the book, it's his first, and you'll enjoy it. It's called The Birthday Boy. It's a very quick read, an exciting read. Just when you think, I'm going to take a little break, set the book down, it's like, wait a minute, where are they going here? And all of a sudden, you're through the book, and it's highly entertaining. His website is manishnprasad.com. Books available at Goodread, Amazon. Just Google his name and you'll find places the book's available literally worldwide. In talking about, you mentioned Fiji. Fiji is where you really got the impetus to write this, as I understand. What you had worked on this for a while. You took a vacation back in Fiji. The weather was rainy, and you went to work on the book, and that's where you really made a lot of progress.
That's right. I got a 3-week leave from work, so I went to Fiji. This was my first return to home after I moved over to Australia. And yeah, it was raining. There was nothing for me to do, and this idea was ripe for the picking. And I started the story, and I was there for 3 weeks, so I would have completed 1/3, which is not much of a progress if you think of it. But the thing was, I had written quite a few pieces, then I had to go back and redo them again, because if it's not interesting to you, like I said, it wouldn't be interesting to the reader. So I completed 1/3 of it in Fiji. Then I came back because that was the end of the 3 weeks, and then every Sunday I kept adding a paragraph or two. A paragraph was a great advancement. I mean, if you look at the time I had, so I kept doing that, and I think the first draft was ready by June. And then we went into year-end reporting, which is the busiest time for me in the year. So that kind of took 2 months off. I didn't do any writing, but it was good, because what had happened was, the first draft I kept visiting it, and I thought that it was lacking in the end because it ended very quickly. And I thought it was leaving the readers literally hanging. So what I thought was, maybe I had to put in more to give a little explanation about how things were. So yeah, after Animal Cards, I went back, I did the final draft, and by September it was ready. But yeah, I mean, the 1/3 of what I wrote in Fiji was good progress, because had I just started over here, it would have probably taken me more than the time I took.
The Birthday Boy is the name of the book. Manish N Prasad is our guest on the program. The book's available worldwide. Information at Manish's website, which is manishnprasad.com. You can link on directly to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and get all the information and link on, again, directly to Manish's website. One of the readers says, and this I found was interesting because it really sums it up, beautifully written novella that defies genre stereotypes. No way to predict where the story is taking you, only at the end realize how cleverly constructed, charming, and thoughtful. That has to make you feel good when you read that, because that's exactly what you set out to do for the reader when you wrote the book.
Well, that's right. Yeah, the person who wrote it was she like we work at the same place, and she started reading the book, and like she read it over a few days, and she was telling me she was guessing on what the genre was, what the point I was trying to make, and I couldn't actually tell her then. I mean, like I just nodded and shook my head at the same time, pretty much. But yeah, when she eventually read it, and then she realized what it was, and she said like it was well presented, because like I said, I mean, like the story is the way it ends is not something totally out of this world. It's like you can come across stories like that, but it was the way that I told it which I hoped would make it unique. And I guess with her, I hit the nail on the head, I guess.
You mentioned before that you really have a passion for writing. This is something that started for you at an early age, and I guess what Sherlock Holmes was an early influence. What were some of the early influences on you as a young reader, and then influences that you were able to carry with you as an author now?
Well, as a young reader, my take was all fantasy, because I grew up reading Enid Blyton when I was very young, and then went to Hardy Boyd, and then my dad introduced me to cowboy novels. So the first one I read was Shane, which swept me off my feet. It's still one of the best books I've written.
Yes.
Sorry, not written. One of the best books I've read. I didn't write Shane. So I was actually focusing more on westerns when I was younger, typing scenes, and I had this. I tried to do research on not research, but a little bit reading on the Colt 45 and the Winchesters and the states which were actually western states, and then but it oriented more towards a fantasy side of it, because I didn't know much history behind it, and as I grew old, I realized that much of these Western things are all Hollywood invented. And then as I grew, when I went to high school, I read my first Sherlock Holmes stories, and I knew about the character, but then Sherlock Holmes actually was the story I read was towards the tail end of my high school, and that again got me very, very deeply, because what I saw was what Sherlock Holmes did, but he was using these everyday characters and presenting a story which was just so totally unique. And I thought that and I realized that maybe I had to do that, because as you grow older, you realize that when you write a fantasy story, it has to be anchored somewhere. You can't actually write something out of nowhere. At least there's somewhere the audience has to relate to it. So I took the concept of Sherlock Holmes, and I thought that I had to set my story in this setting, which is something I know about. I can't it's very difficult for me to write a Western novel, because I haven't been to that side of the country
right.
at all. So Sherlock Holmes taught me that this is what you can do with using everyday characters. You may have one or two characters who are sort of out of the ordinary, but overall it's a story. It's a unique story set with everyday people. And that's how I realized that, and that's what Sherlock Holmes kind of taught me. I was so taken by it that the first plots that I made were just totally Sherlock Holmes stories, and that's not a very safe thing to do. I try to sort of get away from it, and that's the reason why I have to wait for the way the book starts. And the thing is, having said that, I must still say that Sherlock Holmes does influence my writing, and it's something that I aspire to. It was so great that people thought at that point in time that he was a real person. How do you beat that?
Yes, amazing. But you get so caught up in the book, and it's hard to put down, and that influenced so many lives all across the world, mine included, as well as yours, and spurred you on to your first book, which is called The Birthday Boy. Manish N Prasad is our guest on the program. A few minutes left, and we're talking about the book, The Birthday Boy, which is available worldwide, Goodreads, and Amazon. His website, Manish's website, is Manish, Manish N Prasad, Prasad.com. You can link on directly at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And if you Google his name, you'll get information, the Facebook page, and where the book is available. In the couple minutes left in the program, I want to talk about, this has been a labor of love for a number of years for you, something that you really wanted to do. When you got the book already, you send it off to the publisher, it comes back, you open it up, and it's got a very impressive book cover, grabs your attention, very simple, very elegantly done. What was it like when you picked the book up, and here it's got The Birthday Boy, Manish N Prasad, author, written on it. What was that like for you?
Oh, it was simply great. The cover was my idea. I didn't draw it, but the publishers asked me like what I wanted the cover to be. I said, well, that's what it should be, and I thought that captured not the whole story, but it captured the trigger point of the story. Just on that break, when I was in high school, I used to write a page or two about some idea that came to my mind, and I used to give my friends to read it, and they were all saying, yeah, it's pretty good, and then you should start working on it, but I didn't, because then you jump to another idea, and then I was told later on, it's very easy to start something when you are inspired by it, but the challenge is to keep to it. Like when the flame of inspiration cools down, you still need to keep to it to end it, and that's the test of commitment and determination. So I guess this story was putting those demons to rest, because I've had I've got many ideas, but this is the one that I finished and I completed. And when I saw the cover, when I saw the book with my name on it, I was saying this is it, at least my name is on the board now. It's a self-published book, but it's still a book nonetheless. So it was a sense of fulfillment.
Yes, Manish Prasad, our guest on the program, a published author. This is the first book, The Birthday Boy. Are you working on another book?
Well, I've got the idea, like I said. But as to when I get the time to write it, that's another story. You see, the thing about this book was this was more out like it was to be an introduction to the world that the characters live in. And I thought it was a good way to introduce the characters and their world and their challenges and their issues. Actually, the main protagonist in this book had not so much as a major role that I have in mind for the other novels, the other stories. So yeah, so I'm that's why I thought this was a very good way of introducing the characters to the readers. I've got, I think, 2 or 3 ideas. The next 2 ideas would probably be as short as The Birthday Boy, around there somewhere. The third idea is a little longer, but when I would start writing it, that's another story.
Well, I guess the rainy season in Fiji and a vacation, I guess that's what you need to go back and to be inspired to write there as well. The book is called The Birthday Boy. It demonstrates the power of fate through a teacher's encouragement, a Sunday outing, and a chocolate cake. It's an excellent read. Like I say, just when you think you got it figured out, it's like, wait a minute, I go back and read that again, because this is not where I think this is going. It's an excellent read. The book is available all across the country and the world at Goodreads, at Amazon.com. Manish Prasad, our guest on the program, his website is manishnprasad.com. I'll spell that out, MANISHNPRASAD.com. Information on the book available, of course, there. If you just Google the name, you'll get information on where the book's available, the Facebook page, that type of thing. And if you can't remember all of that, just go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you can link on directly to Manish's website. Again, the name of the book is The Birthday Boy. Manish, I'm excited for you. It is an excellent read, an excellent first book, and we're looking forward to book number 2, and we'll have you back to talk about it.
All right, Rick, when I finish book number 2, you'll be one of the first to know about it.
I am looking forward to it. We will have it back, and we'll talk about it on the program. Again, The Birthday Boy, Manish N Prasad, our guest on the program. His website, manishnprasad.com. You're listening to This Week in America. Our website, thisweekinamerica.us.